This is for Jill Grunewald. Jill was my best friend from when she arrived in the 6th grade and on into high school. At one point, we both spent quite a bit of time memorizing all of the words to the Fantastics, especially Try to Remember. And that's what I've been trying to do, is remember Jill. I remember in 6th grade, Mr. Kroper's class, he would have us write these really difficult essays with themes like, what is art, or what is time? I would probably go to the dictionary to get started. I'm sure my first sentences started something like, time is ... On the other hand, he would always read Jill's out loud to the class, and we would stand there with our mouths open. She probably didn't even use the word time in her essay and could still capture the essence. I'd sit there in awe of her. How did she do that? Could I do that? Jill was always leading the way, and as the song ends, I'd follow.
I was originally going to do a different speech for Jill, not this one, but I have a long version of that one on the website. Yesterday, however, I was in my parents' house and I looked out the window and saw kids walking to school just the way I used to walk to school for 10 years along the same block, but they looked very different. They had iPhones, they had earbuds. We didn't even have backpacks. And the main thing that was different with the girls is not a single one of them was wearing a skirt. They were all wearing pants. And it made me remember how when our class was waging the battle of dropping uniforms, it was practically revolutionary to show up not wearing a black or white pleated skirt, let alone, pants. But Jill showed up in blue jeans. This was something I never ever would have even thought of doing, let alone dare to pull off. It was also in senior year that Jill introduced me to Kurt Vonnegut via Cat's Cradle. She was especially taken with one of the wonderful words that Vonnegut had coined, karass. A karass has been defined as a group of people linked in a cosmically significant manner. The way Jill described it to me, I thought the word would be spelled C-O-R-A-S-S, as in a corral of people you emotionally and spiritually caress, as in your core. In 1969, Jill made me know that she and I were part of the same karass. It's something I've been grateful for all my life. I hope that this very meaningful gathering of old friends 40 years later means that we are all part of that same karass of Jill's karass, and that we can still all be inspired by the memory of her brilliance, her beauty, and her bold questioning of authority.
My good friend Gary Keane passed away on December 6, 2004. He died of a rare disease of pulmonary hypertension. Gary's Piedmont experiences were very positive memories. We laughed many times together and had special times growing up in this great town. I had 47 years meeting Gary in the 2nd grade at Wildwood Grammar School. We always enjoyed having passionate times together. Gary would truly love being here right now because he always loved to reminisce with all of you and would love to be here enjoying this setting. Gary chose to see the lighter side of life and would make most situations fun and memorable. Gary was a beloved son, brother, uncle, and true friend. I would like to toast Gary to a life well lived and would like to raise our glass tonight, and please think of Gary to a life well lived. Thank you.
Bob McDonald was born and grew up in Piedmont. He was active and involved in high school activities, including varsity football and track, giving the morning announcements, building the homecoming float for the class, and participating in the student activity fundraising drives. Well, Bob was quite a ladies' man in high school. In fact, he's credited by more than one girl as being my first boyfriend. Other girls have recalled that he was a real masher, and he made me feel hopeful and worthy. Bob was a friend to all. He quickly and cheerfully helped everyone and anyone. After high school, Bob attended community college and then in 1973 entered the U.S. Navy. He served 4 years active duty and then continued serving in the Naval Reserves until his retirement. Along the way, Bob married and started a family with a son and then a daughter. They settled in Oklahoma, where his life centered around his family. Music was a big part of Bob's life. Whether he was listening to it, playing it, collecting it, or teaching it, Bob shared his love of music with everyone. From playing his guitar in the Gremlins rock band in junior high school to teaching others to play guitar, we can still hear the music of Bob's life even though he left us on June 18, 2005.
Gary Shupin passed away roughly a year ago after a bout with melanoma. For those who may not have known Gary, he was different from the rest of us. He was born with cerebral palsy, had learning disabilities, was nearly blind, could barely hear, and after all that, at the age of 22, began to suffer from epileptic seizures. Amazingly, Gary never viewed his situation negatively. Somehow, with the loving support of his family, an encouraging school district, and an unshakable personal drive, Gary was not only mainstream, but he played a prominent role in the fabric of our class and of our school. Everyone knew Gary and his captivating smile, tremendous outlook, and optimism. But make no mistake, behind this wonderful exterior was one of the most determined people I have ever met. Gary came from an extraordinary family and was fortunate enough to live independently his entire life. His uncle and late mother purchased a fourplex in San Francisco, and while Gary lived in one unit, his caregivers were able to live in the other units for the last 15 years of his life. After Gary's passing last October, his family donated the property to the Jewish Family and Children's Services Group so that families in similar circumstances will be able to live the kind of lifestyle that Gary enjoyed. The Gary Shupin House is one of our class's preferred charitable causes, and there are brochures on the back table for those who may wish to consider a personal contribution. When I think of Gary, I think of him, for me, as an absolute inspiration. When I have difficulties in my life, all I have to do is think of Gary and my problems seem suddenly extremely small. When I'd rather stay in bed that extra hour, I think about Gary, how Gary wouldn't have wasted a single minute of his life. As I said at the outset, Gary was different from the rest of us. In fact, he was better than most. And every member of our class is richer for having known someone who faced such adversity with the grace, dignity, and determination which Gary lived every day of his life. I thank God for the opportunity to have known Gary, and I appreciate the profound impact he has personally had on my life. Thank you, Gary, and may God bless you.